I think another challenge in this particular piece as well is the doubling. So everyone in the cast returns with slight variations for yourself, but quite strong variations. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it's like to create another character or another version of a character in the second half? How you assisted by the music, by the style? How do you craft that second character?
It's a gift. What fun!
Yeah.
To be able to play a second character.
Yeah.
And for me, to play a 98-year-old Jersey grandmother, like, what a gift.
Yeah.
I mean, there are challenges in it, definitely. It's a very quick shift, which I hadn't quite realised until we were in the rehearsal room, and I think we ran it, and I'm like, because we rehearsed Act 1, then we rehearsed Act 2, and I'm like, great, these are really two great characters that occur within a minute of each other. Yeah, seconds. So I guess the challenge in that is to try to find a way to drop into it for yourself. Everyone works differently. I work with a lot of sensory stuff at Strasbourg, so to get it in your body, to find the physicality. If you have an accent, I try to find the key words or the hesitation noises that drop you into that accent, because you don't have a lot of time. So you just have to kind of remember those things, remember what you want, and then go on stage. But it's a real treat to be able to explore totally different ends of the spectrum.
You have to look at how differently do you want them to physically be. I'm a descendant of primary George in the first act. How are the from speech patterns, how are their rhythms different physically? How are they different? Do you want similarities between the two? Is there a point in the act where you want an essence of that primary character to come in, where one is sort of speaking through or taking ownership of, those sorts of things. So it's, what are their needs? Do their needs differ? Are they the same? Why have they been set up in that way? So what is it? I have similar lines. Say the exact same line: connect, George, connect in the first act, and connect, George, connect in the second act. Are they the same? Are they different? What is George 1 trying to connect to? What is George 2 trying to connect to? And it does. There are shades within the two, but as Chrissy says, it's great. You kind of get to really cut loose. For me, George 1 is so restrained and head up and gets very agitated at times, and is so intensely focused, is so heady for much of the show. And then in the second act, it's like, it's a ridiculous number where I'm just running around the stage trying to schmooze everybody on stage, and there's cameras everywhere and all the rest of it. It's like, to actually be physically freer at that point, we're a century on, so physically we're in a very different, or the parameters, the boundaries that you have with other characters on stage are completely different to where you were in the first half. So those sorts of things really have been, really important. And you just play around with it. How does the costuming affect that as well?
I'm in a wheelchair.
Yes. And Alex actually is wearing the same trousers and the same shirt as he is in Act 1. It's a fascinating thing. In this particular piece, these are the only two characters where that you need to see, that the audience are invited to see similarities and developments, I suppose. The rest of them are absolute disjuncts. I mean, it wouldn't matter if Robert Greenberg played Franz in Act 1 or whatever. It doesn't, and there have been lots of productions where they've mixed and matched. The recent one at the Châtelet in Paris, for example, his mother in Act 1 plays his wife in Act 2, which I think is a very strange doubling.
Yeah.
But and just as the moment, his mother in Act 1 and at the end plays an art critic in this too. So what's that saying about what parents do too? That's a whole new story.
There's always a critic.
So there's no rules, is there, Stuart, about who should die? Apart from these two characters, there are no rules. I thought that's what you had to do, but then you said there's no rules. But then if you think about how, as students studying this, what the doubling might mean and how it might have a through line or not a through line, I think it's a really interesting conversation that you're having.
It is, but this isn't something like, forgive my operatic background, but something like the Tales of Hoffmann, where the four villains all show a different side of the nemesis of Hoffmann, or the four heroines all show a different side of the people that he loves. It's not like that in this show at all, but it is absolutely with these two characters that you need to see something of Dot in Marie. You need, and therefore when Dot comes back again, she is infused with what she's given her child as well, who's now the grandmother. Isn't it confusing? But for some inexplicable reason, it makes sense. Or did it make sense to you? That doubling, okay. It will to
it's
you.
something, yeah, it's something, but it's it's something to think about in your analysis in terms of an evaluation of the gift of this doubling, or the complexity, or the challenge that this doubling offers for an actor in terms of expressive skills and establishing that character.
Kind of along those lines as well, back in relating to the music, is the wonderful thing that you have in musical theatre is a thing called the reprise, where you have a song set up in the first half that's used for a specific moment. It will then inevitably come back, or the tune will come back in the second half. And there's a huge one, the song that ends our relationship actually creates, the resolution comes out of that in the second half. So it actually, as an audience member watching it, you're sort of aware of that. So by the time you then hear it again, the finales of both acts are essentially the same. So you've experienced it in one capacity in the first half, and then when it lands on you later on, you've already had all that stuff infused into it, like you have with the characters with us, that just add this other layer on that kind of take you another step down the emotional train.
And that's deliberate, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's a technique.